Yep, the players are off, and let's follow.
Away they go.
Let's follow their
We
games.
have a Reti variation between Wesley and Vishy. Very early E3, I wanted to say. And the players have quickly transposed into isolated queen pawn position.
It's like a reverse panel almost.
Yeah, and then very quickly Vishy played this move. Whoa.
That's a
very surprising move. Wesley giving up his bishop. I had expected him to drop back his bishop from b5, or simply put, no, knight c3, he takes on d4. But at the moment, quite an imbalance. And with this move, knight c3, white is trying to get a clamp over the c5 square, and that was why we saw c5 by Vishy.
Very, very surprising decision to take. I'm very surprised by this all because this kind of contradicts everything I've learned.
Yes, and as a chess coach teacher,
yes.
You're telling your students, don't give up those bishops too soon.
If black manages to not lose a pawn in the next 5 to 10 moves, then at any moment d4 or c4 could potentially come, open up the bishops, and that's going to be bad news for white because the attack could potentially be deadly.
Right. Exactly, and that's why you saw this very cagey move, knight on c3 to e2. Lovely opening up the bishop on b2. And I was about to say there's also those bishop takes h2 bishop sacrifices in the position. Now that the pawns are on g2 and g3, white has protected his king handsomely. But on the other hand, you said it very well just a moment ago, Christian. If black manages to hang on to these, his hanging pawn structure, and retain the two bishops. I actually like black's position.
I like black's position a lot. I always found that the secret to playing these as black is just to not necessarily determine the pawn structure on this hanging pawns with d5 and c5 by pushing one of them, but just simply to enjoy your space advantage and, you know, wait. White doesn't have too many great waiting moves after the natural rook ft1.
He's achieved his maximum, whereas black is actually looking to improve the position of his queen. Queen actually in these structures really belongs on the e6 square. Why the e6 square? Well, it has to do with the light square bishop on b7, and there's always that it's hanging in the air, that d5 d4, and you want to be able to play bishop takes f3 and exploit the light squares.
Yes. And white is going to try to put a lot of pressure on the c5 pawn because that's the only pawn that he can attack. Rook c2, rook c1, bishop a3, try to gather as much force as possible around that pawn, and at the right moment knight e1, knight e3, and exert as much force as possible. The problem with knight e1 is you're leaving the d4 square behind, so d4 could come, opening up the bishop on b7, and that could once again be problematic. So he has to time his knight transfer very, very well if he wants to be successful.
Okay, and I just see that the players are slowed down considerably from their early fast pace, and both players under 4 minutes. Once again, it's a 5 minute per player with the 3-second delay.
And here comes the h-pawn. I love this.
Yes.
Very direct play.
Of course. With the center basically kept, right? Black is looking to break up white's kingside structure. Move h7, h5, actually, I think is geared against your knight.
Guys, we just saw a huge blunder.
A huge blunder after rook c7. Look at that pattern with the queen on b6, rook c7, rook d8. No.
And Vishy realized it right away, as did Wesley. Wesley jumped at that opportunity. Rook c7, bishop c3, and bishop a5 is on tap to skewer an exchange. And this move d5, d4 is a desperate
a5,
attempt.
Potentially d takes e3, queen takes d8, bishop takes d8, bishop takes b6, e takes f2, king takes f2, a takes b6, and that looks like enough compensation with the two bishops.
But I can simply take...
So I have to capture first.
Capture first on d4, yes.
Yeah, and even if you go bishop takes and pawn takes and then move your queen, you're still... Your rooks are still going to get skewered by this move bishop a5. The rook on, as you mentioned, d8 and c7, Jovi, they're not moving away in time. So d4, and we're expecting e takes d4. Let me just refresh my screen. I'm just going to take a quick look at Well, that's a weird game. But, ooh, a big error. Rook c7, a big error. And there we see it. e3 takes d4 by Wesley. Oh boy, what to say. We talked about what kind of form the players would be in coming to this opening, the opening games.
Yes.
Remember, they're playing 9 games of Blitz today and tomorrow. Vishy is recaptured, but bishop a5. Maurice in Leuven, what do you got for us, Maurice?
No, you're following that very exciting game. Just want a quick update on this one between Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Kramnik. Vlad played g5 in this position, signaling a desire to attack after a trade on this square. Knight back b6, g3, stopping the knight from going to f4. I don't think so. Knight appeared on the square f4 anyway. If a capture occurs, of course, he could take with anything in this position. G takes f4. This bishop is trapped, and black has the attack on this side. So a sharp game happening there as well. But the players are indeed keeping the balance here in this position. Back to you guys.
Thank you.
Jovi.
And indeed, we have news. Wesley has defeated Vishy Anands. So after bishop a5, presumably there must have come resignation.
Indeed, that appears to be the case. Bishop a5. We would see the trade of rooks, but Vishy recognizing that after he moves his queen, again, I pointed out the queen really belongs on e6. It's over. You just take a rook, and you taking this pawn, and a huge blunder. But that's the nature of Blitz, and you have to put it behind you. You're going to expect in such a fast time control, you can't play perfectly. Christian.
And especially at this level, you cannot afford one-move blunders like that one. Maybe at the 2500, 2600 level, Grandmaster can still not spot this type of little nuances, but at the 2800.